Ladies and gentlemen, let us now begin our next session titled The Geotechnological Challenge. Mr. Son Kyung-sik, Chair of Korea Enterprises Federation, and Mr. Marcus Wallenberg, Chair of the Board of Directors for SEB, will join in. First, please welcome Chairman Son Kyung-sik. The floor is yours.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to thank Chairman Jang Dae-hwan and Mailgyang Media Group for making his forum possible and for giving me an opportunity to share my thoughts with Chairman Wallenberg, the most respected business leader in Sweden. In this session, we will talk about technology innovations and solutions for the issues ahead of us. After speeches, we are going to have a discussion about related issues. After the COVID-19 began last year, we suffered from a global economic downturn. The cross-border trade and the movement have been restricted, and the social distancing measures caused a serious decrease in offline consumption. Global tourism, aviation industries, and service sectors, including restaurants and hotels, were hit hard by the pandemic. On the other hand, untech industries such as e-commerce and online meetings grew rapidly. Also, climate change and carbon neutrality have emerged as global issues. The business paradigm is shifting toward eco-friendly and low-carbon industries like renewable energies and electric cars. Rapid technology development, known as the fourth industrial revolution, creates new industries, which in turn promote further technology innovation. Our society and economy have been advancing through such virtuous circle. Recently, the most profound change is the digital transformation. As digital technologies are used at all aspects of business, industries are fast becoming more digital than ever before. Untech businesses, including non-human or remote services, have been growing, and digital infrastructure like smart factories or logistics robots has also become more important in business. Such transformation has changed the traditional employment structure and the ways of working. Face-to-face service jobs are being lost, while new forms of work, like digital platform work, are newly created. As the way of working are getting more diverse, more companies begin to adopt various smart working systems, such as work from home and remote work, in order to promote their productivity and efficiency. Indeed, technology has the power to make changes and transformation. Whenever new technologies were developed, like automobiles, computers, and the internet, they made our lives much more convenient and easier than before. For now, new technologies like AI, big data, 5G, and IoT are already used in our daily lives. Furthermore, advancement of extended reality, virtual reality, and augmented reality has opened up a new and infinite virtual world, so-called metaverse. Also, biotechnologies have helped us develop vaccines and cures to combat viruses, and the bio-industry has now become an essential industry and new growth engines for us. The pace of technology development will be much faster than we expected, and it will bring about more opportunities for us. In the near future, our lives will be very different from what is now. The IoT, which is the core technology in the fourth industrial revolution, will be used in all areas of industries, from home appliances to automobiles, healthcare, and agriculture. It will lead smart economies and create higher values to the economy. Also, the secondary battery market is growing fast in the global trend toward the eco-friendly system. It will drive new growth industries like future cars and renewable energies. As brain research, one of the most challenging areas, is progressing fast, we can solve many difficult problems in aging society, such as incurable diseases. If the technology becomes available to connect human brains with computers, we can operate things just by thinking. In the future, it will be possible that highly advanced AI and robots replace human workers. Technologies make our lives much more convenient and improve our productivity much higher. We are able to live increasingly longer thanks to the technology. It is obvious that our future depends on technology innovation in core industries such as semiconductors, bioengineering, AI, and quantum computing. Technology has become a key factor of national development strategy, closely related to politics, national security, public health, and job creation. We also need technologies to address global issues that we are facing, such as climate change, energy, and natural disasters. In this era of tech innovations, no one would deny that business has very important role to play. However, businesses cannot do this alone. Enterprises, education and research institutions, and governments have to work together to drive technology innovation through the mid and long-term strategies. Technologies can be developed through the process of countless trials and failures, not by a single one-time effort. Therefore, strong leadership is essential throughout all development processes. The government and business leaderships are both important. Especially, business leaders have to make active and aggressive investment in technology with creative corporate cultures and a strong vision for the next decade or more years. This is about entrepreneurship, which takes risk and overcome difficulties for achieving goals. In history, we have seen many stories about entrepreneurships turning a crisis into an opportunity through innovation. For business, it is mainspring to activities. In Korea, a number of tech startups are created, and the government actively supports them. From the perspective of a business, we can look at the environmental issues as an opportunity, not just a crisis. In the future, the eco-friendly markets for low-carbon products and services will be growing fast, and this market can be an opportunity for companies which innovate their business models with green technologies. I think technology innovation is a solution for both business and environment. For technology innovations, human resources is the most important. We have to foster more creative peoples. Education should focus on creativity. Many times, technology innovation is a large-scale project which needs enormous resources and funds. Government supports are desirable to develop core strategies, technologies. Already, many countries have provided enormous R&D investments, financial supports, and tax benefits. This year, the Korean government also announced its New Deal plan for large-scale investments on technology. The global competition for technology is getting intense because it became a critical factor to determine the future of nations and enterprises. As China's technology sectors have grown so rapidly, the conflict and competition between the US and China are becoming more fierce. However, apart from the US and China case, we have noted that technologies can be developed more effectively through global cooperation. In the 1970s, Korean companies were able to achieve economic development by technology cooperation and joint investment with other leading companies in advanced countries. The world needs stronger global cooperation, and we have to work together. As the pace of technology advancement is getting faster, the roles of businesses, educational and research institutions, and governments become more important than ever before. Even at this point, technologies are changing rapidly. Such fast progress of technologies would have taken several decades in the past, but it is happening in 1 or 2 years now. I believe that if we continue the current technology development in the right directions and work together to tackle global challenges, the new technologies will enable us to build a better future for all. Thank you very much. Okay, now we are going to hear from Mr. Marcus Wallenberg, chairman of SEB and leader of Sweden's largest business group. Korea has a lot in common with Sweden in terms of economic development. We both support open and free market economies and highly depend on human resources. In this regard, I expect that his speech will give us very meaningful insight on global trends and issues that emerged from the COVID-19 pandemic. Unfortunately, Mr. Wallenberg cannot be here on the stage with me due to the pandemic, but I would like to invite Chairman Wallenberg on this screen.
Hello, my name is Marcus Wallenberg, and it's a great pleasure to address this whole group at the World Knowledge Forum I'm calling in from Stockholm, Sweden, where I work at a family bank called SEB. And it's a great pleasure to be here with you. I represent the fifth generation of my family being involved in business, and I think that we're going through a period of quite unprecedented change. And I see this in a perspective of both being part of a geopolitical difference from the times that we have seen before, but also a very big question around technological change that we are now seeing. I should actually say to you that Sweden is a country very much dependent on exports, international relations, and innovation, which means that I come from a country which very much supports open markets, free trade, and a really keen interest in developing businesses and technologies over time. What I see, though, at this point in time is that we are moving away from a situation which we have known for quite some time, which is the multilateral rules-based free trade system, into a more complex situation than we have seen before. And if you look at some of the bigger players, it's quite natural, of course, that China, with its tremendous growth in economic power and also having a very strong interest in technological development, is taking a bigger role on the global scene. At the same time, the United States is used to have this leadership situation a long time. That is now trying to be more assertive on certain technological issues, which of course can have an impact on the possibility to have open trade, and more protectionism is coming into the situation discussed in the United States. And finally, we have the European situation where discussions are now ongoing on how to become more strategically independent, autonomous, and how to develop from here, both in a technological but also in other ways, which is quite an open debate as it is right now. So as a result, we are seeing a more complex, a more competitive, a more demanding situation on the global scene for businesses as we are progressing from here. Now, on top of that, we have the COVID pandemic. We know that that has been hitting a big question at the same time as we have some of the tension going on a more geopolitical scale. And therefore, it has turned into become more of a strategic race on technology, more than perhaps we would have been asking for. So if you look at areas such as quantum computing, autonomous systems, artificial intelligence, 5G, 6G, these are areas which are very important for businesses going forward, but which of course is also being impacted by this tech race that we are seeing right now. And therefore, we have to remind ourselves, in my mind, the very important fact that some of these technologies in the past, but also the new technologies, will be dependent on an open R&D and innovation framework, where you actually can work across borders to develop your innovation and your technological edge by cooperating with similar businesses in other parts of the world. So we don't want to see an economic and technological divide between the East and the West. We certainly don't want to see that the globalization is putting in on hold going forward because of this technological difference that we're now seeing. And this will impact certain future developments which I look as a businessman and as a banker very much on. On one side, it's of course the green technology. We have recently received a new IPCC report released by a very big group of scientists under the umbrella of the United Nations. It was very clearly indicating that on a number of climate and other sustainability issues, we will have to act quicker than before. And net zero, which earlier was discussed around 2050, probably will have to be rethought, and I think personally the date will come closer. That innovation and that investments into that whole green technology will be huge in years to come. And I think that the need for exchange of having being able to work scientifically and in businesses on a cross-border situation will be very, very important. It really will demand a lot of R&D and technology, and for that we need to cooperate. Secondly, I see this potential technological divide hitting communication technologies of different sorts. We are now dealing with the 5G and 6G. There has been a number of security issues being discussed that has also had an impact on certain firms doing business in certain parts of the world. What we don't want to happen is that we will have the difference in standards and so on going in the wrong direction in years to come, because that will hurt not only cost but also the pace of which we need bigger and quicker responsibilities and possibilities for develop our communication technologies going forward. And thirdly, I believe that also in the field of artificial intelligence, we must see a greater cooperation. I personally believe that we have only seen the start of the AI situation. It will also translate probably into the quantum technologies going forward. These technologies will demand not only scientific cooperation and R&D cooperation, but also will demand, I think, that we need to work across businesses across the globe to develop these technologies within AI and communication technology to become really competitive and innovation force for the development of our planet and also for our businesses. So we can, when we think about some of the reports having been done by for example, the United States and where they put it in a national security context, it has shown very, very quickly how we must really be sure that we use the globe's facilities to develop all this. So what is all this about? Well, in my book, to a very large extent, this is about future entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship in larger corporations, but also entrepreneurship in smaller corporations. And if you look at in our two nations, Sweden and South Korea, it's obvious to me that we are two countries which are R&D and innovation driven, and we need to have a stronger emphasis on that going forward. We also have to realize that a lot of these technologies we have to develop also so that we don't get in between some of the other political tensions, security questions that are being discussed in major nations going forward. So for us, this technological development will be extremely important. And I also think that we are now seeing trends which are not moving in the right direction, but we could move in the right direction if we really wanted to. And I do think that both in the digital data, AI, and in the green technology, we will be so dependent on having entrepreneurs really moving the business possibilities forward. In our case in Sweden, we have for a long, long time relied on what we call the triple helix model, actually where you find a way to cooperate between academia, between government, and also between business to make these things happen. And we also need not only the entrepreneurship coming into that particular model, but we also need to foster regulation so that entrepreneurship will be easier, and not the least to secure the availability of risk capital in years to come. So that is very, very important. So summing up, we have a great opportunity in years to come. New technologies are coming to the surface. We also have big challenges which will demand new investments into the future in communication technologies, in computing power, AI, but not the least in green technology to take care of some of the planetary issues that we have in front of us. And we in small countries can only achieve going forward is through innovation to stay competitive in the world. So I think this is something that brings Sweden and South Korea closer together, and that we have a possibility to work so much more. So when we come out of the COVID crisis, this is something we should bring forward to the question again, and make sure that we are bringing the whole Asian, European, United States global perspective unified rather than dividing it for the future. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, Chairman Wallenberg, for sharing such valuable and timely insights with us. I also believe that technology has to be developed to the right direction of contributing to the whole world. For this, we need to build stronger global cooperations on technology innovations. Let me ask you my first questions. We have seen that COVID-19 spreads across borders. I think that global cooperation is one of the key factors in the long battles with the pandemic. Besides virus, we are also facing various global issues like the climate crisis and rapid technological changes. How can we successfully respond to these challenges?
Thank you, Chairman Song King-shak, for that question. I think that in responding to your question, I think we have to realize that we are actually, some of the biggest challenges that we're facing ahead of us are actually borderless, which means that the global cooperation is very important for us all to develop the business. We also have to remember that many of the questions that we need to deal with, whether it's on political or business side or climate or whatever, will demand a lot of R&D and innovation in order to be able to face these vulnerabilities that we see around the globe at this point in time. Look at the pandemic, completely borderless. We were seeing some tremendous effort in the whole vaccine development, high technology moving extremely fast. So when I look into the future here, I believe that there are certain things that we should strive for in order to accelerate cooperation on a global scale. So we do have a number of institutions in place already today, WHO, we have other UN factors, but also the standardization bodies like International Telecom Union. And I think that these can serve a very important role to set standards and set goals for what we're trying to achieve. I also believe that getting more of stability around the cooperative possibilities between regions, but also inside regions, will be a very, very important concept here. And then the R&D accessibility. We are in a world where basic R&D are moving into applied R&D at a much, much greater speed today. And for doing that, we need to be able to find a way to invest into those R&D ideas going forward to achieve the technological development that we want to see. And finally, we do need entrepreneurship. These are people, these are real entrepreneurs that know how to move a business in from an idea. For that, we need risk capital. So these are some of the components I do believe are important for the future.
Thank you, Chairman, for your answer. As you mentioned in your speech before, successful entrepreneurships help induce creativity. In Korea, anti-business sentiment has been deeply rooted in the society of low and middle income classes. Korean companies are reforming themselves and make great efforts to defend themselves too. But unfortunately, anti-business regulations are not decreasing, and some TV dramas depict business negatively. Your family is known as the most respected business group in Sweden. What is the secret of Wallenberg family?
Well, I'm not sure we're the most beloved, but I do believe that in certain respects we are trying to find a way to move with the times, to change with the times. I think that's one reason why we as a family are still in the business. And some of the questions that we have been debating internally over time and may be applicable or not is that there is probably a big role for business to try to explain its position and the way it tries to add value to society. And that takes a long time. And in our case, it's a matter of supporting R&D and supporting universities in our country with surplus capital going to really move our country forward. A second thing that we are trying to do is to stick to some of our values and beliefs. We are very, very much long-term in what we're doing. We really focus on being innovation-driven and R&D-driven, something that we truly believe is important for the future. We work very much with what we think is perhaps the most important asset for businesses, namely people. So we work very, very much on trying to develop that side of our businesses. And then we are also, as a principle, looking at each business individually and see to that we try to do the best thing for each business. Thirdly, I would point to that it's not only about creating financial value, it's also a matter of seeing the questions in totality to try to get an encompassing view on what is important for the company, for the employees, for the shareholders, but it all have to be in a balance. So I would point to those three factors as some of the things that we do here as a family and spend a lot of time talking about and trying to live by.
Thank you for your comments. I think Wallenberg family works hard to serve your country and people with business. This is what you would like to learn from your family. Now, my last question. When it comes to technology development, human resource is becoming more and more important today. I found that in the IMD report, Sweden ranked fifth, much higher than 31st of Korea. This is very impressive. I would like to ask how Sweden was able to develop such a talented human resources.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I find this a little bit surprising, if I may put it. I was not aware of this ranking as it stands today. But let me say that from a Swedish perspective, I do think that there are a number of factors that actually is prevalent around here that might be giving some sort of impact into this discussion. So I think that Swedes in general, maybe because we live in the part of the world that we do and that we're a small nation, are trying to be useful to society in different ways, through educational system, through doing the business, etc., and thereby contributing to society and trying to find a balance between different factors. I also believe that many Swedes do see that we live in a very small country where we are very much dependent on the relationship to other countries, that from a business perspective we are very dependent on doing export and business in other countries, that we are very dependent on having influence of ideas and scientists and business people from other parts of the world to work with us. And then, as I mentioned earlier, I think that we have, as I said, the triple helix model, which means that many people here in Sweden actually are very used to work across sectors, across borders. And that since we're such a small country, you have to remember we're only 10 million people here. Since we're such a small country, we are able to reach over what may be borders in order to be able to achieve certain results. And that brings a little bit forward a sense of togetherness, which I think is very, very important. Then, by nature, I should say that Swedes are quite curious about new technology, curious about new trends, and many here are eager to learn and try to develop, which actually helps us a little bit in using technology to learn and using technology how to move things forward. And this has been exemplified by quite a bit of R&D. We are not at the level of South Korea. I think South Korea is outstanding when it comes to the R&D side. So but still we do have a big question around how do we push more to do the technological borders and move that forward. But we do have challenges all over the place, and one of the challenges that we are facing is that we must not get complacent. It's important for our economic growth. If we want to have the standard of living that we have to support companies, entrepreneurs, and so on, how to move forward. So it's not a very clear picture that everything is fantastic here, but I think to a certain extent Sweden is trying to move with the times and stay very competitive through innovation going forward, and many people here understand that concept. Thank you.
Well, thank you again for your speech and comments today. It is clear that we are living in the era of technological development, and we need more creativity and innovation. I believe the new technology helps not only better living, but also brings more business opportunities. I hope this session was helpful for all participants of the World Knowledge Forums. Once again, Chairman Wallenberg, it was a great pleasure to see you and discuss such important issues with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for that session, Chairman Son Kyung-sik and also Chairman Wallenberg. Thank you very much. 감사합니다. We have another very important session coming up on climate change after a short break. I will see you in a little while. Thank you.